What is going on, Empire Builders? We're here at episode number 40, and today I've got Rohan Sheth with me on the show. I am so excited to have him. Rohan, what's going on, man?
Thanks for having me, man. I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
Awesome, man. Awesome. I was, before we hopped on here into the call, I was sharing with you some stuff I could go on my business. I'm really excited about, and there's just so many great things going on. And specifically right now and today, I've got you on the show because you are the man when it comes to not only acquiring clients, but then scaling up an agency. And the reason why I brought you on today, one of the reasons or big things that I see a lot of people getting stuck with, especially the people that I work with, is how they scale past a few clients. And now I know you started Rohan Sheth Consulting when you were just starting out, and now you've kind of turned that into Grow Rev Digital. So I just brought you on to talk all about that and how you went from, a nobody essentially, like we all start out as, to what you're doing today.
Yeah, man. That absolutely would love to. I don't know if you want to just kind of banter for a little bit and go back and forth if you have any specific questions.
Why don't you just start off by, in your own words, telling us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in the digital marketing space since 2011. That's when I kind of got my feet wet with it, did a mastermind on traffic in LA, and then kind of understood traffic and did affiliate work for a bit. And affiliate was fun, but it wasn't what I actually enjoyed because I came from a previous background of doing high ticket sales. And I was selling like $6,000 packages inside people's homes in like 90 minutes to 2 hours. It was fucking intense. And then pretty much transitioned, saw a big gap in the market of consulting, and realized, okay, well, that's high ticket. That's also working B2B, which I really enjoyed doing, working B2B versus B2C on high ticket. So I kind of went down that route. And so end of 2014, I started the consulting company, just kind of freelancing initially. I sold a couple of clients for like $500, and they ended up becoming the biggest nightmare clients I've ever had to deal with in my life. Funny because the cheaper you charge, the worse they are, is what I've learned over the years in terms of clients. And then, just learning from that mistakes and kind of kept on scaling. 2015 was just me and a VA for the longest time, running the entire thing. So I'd like sell them. I built the funnels, I'd run the traffic, I'd do it all. End of 2015 came around, a longtime friend of mine, who today is my business partner in the company, didn't realize that he was in digital marketing as well, because we kind of drifted ways for about 8 years, and went full circle and connected with each other back again. And then he's like, I'm in digital marketing, and he's been running massive amounts of traffic. So some of the biggest names you've ever heard of in the industry. And I was like, well, dude, I've got this. I'm looking at bringing on a full-time media buyer, or you could take that position and we just kind of partner up. So that was end of 2015. At the same time, I had the opportunity to go speak in Australia for a big shark out there. And so I got that opportunity, and then combined with that, 2016 just kind of put a trajectory into the company. And from there, we've just been scaling year over year, month over month.
That's so awesome, man. I love when, it's not that it happened by chance. You put in the work and you put yourself in these positions to go do this. But I love when you do that and things actually fall into place, man. So I'm so stoked for you. And just a side note too, a lot of the content you've been putting out has just been really inspiring to me as well, through your Instagram and just in general. So it's really encouraging to see, you just got to continue doing the right things, and you can get to, a point in your business where you can really grow.
Yeah, man, and it's funny because the content piece of my entire business was only really started in the last year. For the 3 years prior to that, when I was growing the agency, it came to a point where I was just focused. It was just, horse blinders. Like I put the most random Facebook statuses sometimes, and they have value in them, but it would just be mainly rants of the most retarded shit or something. But when it came to content of like actually giving that back, it's only been in the last year, which most people, they'll try and go ass backwards in the situation, and they'll try and go content first without actually doing something. And that, in my eyes, you're not being authentic to the community that you want to build.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And I think, there's something to be said for sharing your journey along the way, because there are people who can learn from what you're doing. And that was a big mindset shift for me, where I found some level of success, but for the longest time, I felt like I wasn't worthy of putting back and giving back to the community. So it's nice to see that I've actually been having an impact on some of the people I serve too.
Absolutely. Documenting your journey is definitely different than a lot of what we're seeing today, and like especially on YouTube, right? If you look at in the last year, the biggest phenomenon on YouTube has become the entrepreneurial phenomenon, because you see all these 18, 19-year-olds that are coming out of nowhere and becoming the next YouTube sensation. But what have they actually done? right? For you yourself, you actually went out there, you did the work, you're documenting, you're showing your mistakes that you made. And then the fact that you made all these mistakes along the way, and then you're documenting them, showing them that, rather than saying, hey, go do what I've done, but you've never really actually done anything, which is what I'm talking about, the authenticity part.
Yeah. And I don't want to go too far on a tangent on this one, but I also feel like when you're real honest and share your real truth, it just resonates so much more, because no one can relate to the person who just made it big overnight. I mean, that's not realistic. And if they have, then they probably didn't earn it as much as everyone else did. So, I was so nice for me to realize I can be real and transparent and not have to worry about all these failures that I've had, because we all share those.
100%.
So cool, man. I always love asking this question. So when you were starting your business and you were starting from scratch, you needed to go out and get your first clients. What were the things that you did? And now looking back, what would you have done differently to get your first clients?
Oh man, I came from a door-to-door standpoint. Like that's where I learned my entire sales career. I started in door-to-door, so that's literally what I used that mindset into getting my first clients. The biggest thing, a lot of people that I see in today's day and age is like they want to get online, they want to build these businesses, but they aren't really willing to put the hustle in. You put the hustle in the front end of the grind, or whatever you want to call it, whoever you follow, whether it's Gary Vee, Grant Cardone, doesn't matter. You literally just got to go out and get shit done. And even if it means you got to get a $500 a month client, you got to get a $500 a month client, get your feet wet. But what I would do today differently than I did back then is I would take that exact mindset that I had. Instead of going outside, I would go online, and then I would just start reaching out and giving a shitload of value. And doing, like, if you actually know what you're doing in the online space and you understand how to build out audits and do things for businesses, and let's say you want to go after, I'm just going to hypothetically use roofing as an example. You want to go after roofers, just go and make a list of 1,000 roofers that you can message in the next 90 days and give each of them a free audit on exactly what they can do to fix your business. And I can guarantee out of those 1,000, you're going to close 3. And that 3, let's say if you charge them 2,000, and that's shit numbers, like absolute shit numbers. That's just you giving absolute crap load amount of values, and you have 0 sales experience, 0 anything, and $2,000 a piece. That's $6,000 a month.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. So let's dive into this a little bit. When you say an audit, are you saying that you would send it to them, you'd make the video first and then send it, or you'd reach out and ask them if they'd like an audit done?
I already have it done, so I'd already do the audit. What I would do is already create the audit, maybe create like an Excel spreadsheet or something. If I were to systemize this entire thing, create an Excel spreadsheet, have 1,000 lists, do all the videos, like obviously do 5, 10 at a time. And then once you're done that, is then reach out to them, build a conversation via LinkedIn or email or cold email or whatever you want to do. And then just be like, hey, I have this audit I want to send you specifically for you to show you exactly what you're missing out in the digital marketing space. Is it okay if I send it? Now, if you ask them, is it okay if I send it, 9 out of 10 times they're going to reply back saying yes. And then they're forced now to watch that video. But if you just send it cold, a lot of the times people will watch it, but the fact that there's no commitment from their side to watch it, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've experimented with all different versions of this, doing the audit video first, asking them first, trying to get the audit. And it's just so funny. Everyone is so different. So, your niche, your style, your personality, whatever, you just might need to test a couple of different variations of this to see what works best for you.
Yeah, I'm just kind of shooting broad, right? So it's like different niches can mean different ways of doing it, but you could literally reach out to these people online. Like the one thing that we're implementing right now in my company is doing 5,000 cold emails a day.
Wow. And this is I'm assuming automated, right? Through some kind of software?
Yeah, so it's going to be automated eventually, but right now we're just using tools like Scope Leads to pull lists and then just making sure that we're hitting 5,000 people a day. Because if we get to a point of those 5,000 people, we know that eventually the law of averages will kick in, and then that numbers will just flip in our favor, and then that's where all of these massive inbound amounts of clients will just start coming in like mad.
That is crazy, man. So why don't you, we don't have to, get into the nitty gritty of this. So why don't you share some of those tools that you use to my audience? I'll link to them below the video. The tools that you would recommend that they can go do something similar like you are. Because you're right. I mean, if you just send out enough messages, eventually people will start responding to you. Yeah,
absolutely. Like that's literally it. It's like I'll kind of answer the question, but I'll kind of also answer the second part of that statement. Is I came from the background of doing, like I said earlier, door-to-door sales. And in door-to-door sales, the one thing that we were taught is you knock on 120 doors a day. You're going to talk to 30 to 40 people. 10 of them are probably going to be qualified. 4 to 5 of them are going to be people that you'll have quality, solid conversations with that are actually going to want to sell. And you'll sell 1 to 3 sales a day. and you literally hit those numbers consistently. And no matter what business you're in, whether it's door to door or online, or doesn't matter, law of averages will always work in your favor as long as you're willing to put in the numbers and put in the work and just wait it out. Most people will do it for a week and give up versus doing it for an entire 90 days and letting the law of compounding as well come into play. And then having all the law of averages and compounded effect of those numbers will just literally flip. Because there'll be weeks where you won't get any sales, and then there'll be weeks where you'll be closing 2 a day.
Yeah. And it's funny to me too, man. I feel like sometimes when you're too desperate and you're chasing leads, they can almost sense that. Like it's this weird thing. It's almost like dating, where if you're trying too hard to go like find a girlfriend or a boyfriend or something, whatever it is, like people can sense that, and they kind of, put up their guard. So I love that you're just doing it consistently and not, letting whatever the outcomes are stop you from doing more of that. Because you're right. I mean, eventually people are just going to start getting back to you. So
absolutely. And one thing you said is being indifferent is the one thing that coming from sales and teaching sales and everything else. There's 4 parts of the sale, and I'll just talk about this one. The one that most people don't master, but they should master is just being indifferent in a conversation of sales. It's like if I go to someone and I sell them, I say, listen, man, like I'm here to give you value, but at the end of the day, this is, just for me to give it to you. Whether you do business for me or not, I don't care. And then that way it takes their guard down, and now they're willing to listen and actually be sold.
Yeah. And I've said this on the show before, and I'll say it again. I envy, people like you who started in the sales world, because I never did that. Like I was in marketing, my whole life, and I was afraid to go talk to people. I figured I could write blog posts and post videos on YouTube and clients to start rolling in. So it took me a few years to, break out of that mold and start to realize, no, you have to put yourself out there and go actually sell people. I mean, the amount of people you ask to buy your shit is, literally related to the amount of people that will actually buy it. Like if you don't ask people like, oh, I don't have enough clients or my business isn't where I want. Well, how many people this week did you ask to buy from you? And if you don't ask anyone, no one's ever going to buy.
No one's going to know. Like, literally the biggest thing is just ask. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's a sale. It doesn't matter if you're, wanting to get an upgrade at a hotel, whatever the hell it is, just ask. Because if you don't ask, it's always going to be no. And would you rather have it always be a no, or just be like, oh, there's a 20% chance we get a yes? Like, just go and ask. It's not hurting you. It's not hurting anybody else.
Yeah. And I love that your approach too is all about providing value. I think this is so important. And there's this, rule of reciprocity where people want to help people who've helped them or return the favor of some kind. So as long as you're leading with value and you're making it about them, it's going to be really hard to burn bridges. Some people might tell you, no, they're not interested, but other people might tell you, no, they're not interested, and give you a referral. Like I've had that happen to me where they just weren't a right fit, but a few months later, they referred someone to me that was. So if you're putting the value out there.
And even the value, and referral is number one, but it's like the long-term reciprocity in the back of their head. Because perfect example, I have a guy that I'm talking to right now, reached out to me via Instagram. It would have been early last year, so around January of last year, I believe, is when I talked to him about it. And I just jumped on a call, and I knew he was nowhere near in business for me to even take him on as a client. Like there's specific types of clients that we want to work with. And I said, dude, this is what you need to do. Literally take this, implement it, go hire a 15-year-old, get him to learn it or whatever you want to do, and like implement this. And when it's time, and if you are ready at that point, then we can talk about doing business. November of last year, he reached out to me again and said, hey, in January, I want to bring up the conversation of you taking us on as a client because we've implemented everything you've said. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I didn't realize within a year you were actually going to take all of that, implement it, and then come to a point where it's like now we could actually have this serious conversation about us taking them on as a client.
I love that, man. You gave them so much value that they were almost selling you to work with you.
Yeah, it was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
That's a reverse pitch. That's insane, man. I love that. That's what happens when you put that kind of content and value out there. My YouTube channel right now, it's relatively new. This will be episode 40. I have only about 120 subscribers, and some of my videos barely cracking 1,000 views, which is fine. But my latest client with 3 locations in Texas, that was just off producing content on YouTube. They found me and they loved my stuff, consumed all of it, and now they're a client. So I think people sometimes get too caught up in the numbers, that how many followers they have, how many views they have. And as long as you're putting out real value and content, people will come across your stuff that you put out years ago that you might not have thought was great or didn't have a lot of views, and they're going to love it and they're going to fall in love with you. So I think it just speaks to putting out, content, whether it's
quality
a study or documenting your journey, anything that's helpful to people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So cool, man. Let's talk now a little bit about what you did to go from just a couple of clients to scaling that. And I mean, what I love though too, before we get into that, is that you're still doing things like the 5,000 emails a day. That's insane, man. You've already, for lack of a better word, made it. You don't have to do that. And there's so many people who aren't in your position, who don't have any clients, or they just have a few, and they're not sending those emails. So I really want to commend you and say that that's so awesome.
Thanks, man.
So, but aside from that advice, what would you say to someone who wants to go from, 3-4 clients to actually scaling now a business where they can go 100,000, 200,000 a year?
The biggest thing that I could say in scaling is, and this is coming from me being absolutely naive and not putting this in place, even though I know I should have put it in place when I was starting my business, is systemizing your front end to back end procedures. So what I mean by front end to back end procedures is you're going to have your front end of, client acquisition, leads, sales, all that good stuff, your funnel. So you need to gain your clients. And then the gap between the two is going to be the bridge. It's going to be your onboarding process. And then it's going to be closing, where it's going to be your clients are going to be literally running traffic, making sure the funnels are done, deliveries done on time. Because at the end of the day, what you sell here has to be delivered here. And if you don't deliver here, you're lying here. Right. So that's where most people don't realize. But the biggest thing that I noticed in the last 2 years since we've been on the scaling trajectory is there's never a proper time where you're ever going to have the best systems. But the one thing is you have to evolve with your system. So let's say, for example, if you're at 2 to 4 clients currently and you want to get to like that 8 to 10 client mark, which is usually the big next jump for most people because you're doubling your clients, just from there, is make sure that there's someone in the middle of your front end to back end. So it's like, if you're selling and somebody else is fulfilling the deal, that there's someone in the middle that's communicating with the back end team and the client at least on a weekly basis. Because if they're not communicating with their client on a weekly basis, 8 out of 10 times the client feels like they're not getting what they're paying for and they're gone.
Yeah. And I've had that experience myself, man. Like I got some clients I get comfortable with. We get them, really solid results for the first couple of months, set up a campaign, let it run. And then we go a few weeks without talking to them. And then they call us like, so where have you been? And I definitely agree that I've felt like I've been missing that. And I've been playing account manager in my business in too many cases.
Yeah. The biggest thing that I usually tell people, it's funny because it's a running joke I have with a few other consulting agency friends of mine. And it's like, most clients pay you to know that they have someone that they can just talk to. Like that's all they want. Like it's literally it. And it's funny because we've got clients that, we had a client last year and he's amazing client, probably one of my favorite clients within the last year that we had. I'm not going to name his name, but I brought him on board shortly after TNC last year, scaled his business to a point where he was doing about 40K a month. And then when we finished up with him, we took him to about 400K a month in 10 months. Wow. Like literally scaled his business. It was insane. And now he was at a point where he had to bring his marketing in-house because when clients get a certain size, you have one of two options. Either you give the entire rights to agency to run like a CMO position, or you bring it in-house, and he took it in-house. Absolutely couldn't say anything about it. But I literally, in that 10-month period, we knew exactly, and we had a conversation exactly of, we're going to do this, you're going to go do that. We talked 3 times in that entire 10-month period after me closing them to the entire back end of our team fulfilling. And even in that time, the account manager that ran that ad, or the traffic for that specific client, I think he only got on a call with him. It was like once every 6 weeks or something like that, just to make sure there's new offers or anything coming in place. But we just kept doing exactly what we're doing, and we 10x his business in 10 months from that exact literal system.
And I think that in itself is a tip. When you can 10x someone's business, people are going to seek you out to, work with you. So I don't know how you feel about at the very, very beginning of, when someone's starting doing trials or working for free, but I always tell people, like, go get a result first so you can sell it to people, because they're going to be so much more inclined to do that. Like, who wouldn't want to 10x their business? And that case study is like insane. So I think that in itself is when you can actually get results, like you can sell that and people will seek you out to get that thing.
Yeah. It's 100%. And, you nailed it when you said go do it for free. Most people that it's like, even people that come and reach out to me that want to learn from my course and everything else, they're like, oh, what's the quickest way to get a client? The quickest way to go get a client is go do it for free. Yeah. That's the quickest way to get a client, right? It's like that you have a client, you're just not getting paid for it, but you technically have the responsibility to prove that client a result. And if you do get that client a result, they're going to want to pay you, because people, it's just, it's human nature, unless you find really some cheap not going to say the word, but some guy that's really, really cheap in that terms of like, oh, well, I'm not going to pay you. I just want to continue to get free work. Well, guess what? You, at that point, you have the right to say, well, I'm not working with you anymore, but I'm going to use this case study because I was the one that did the work and got this result for you, and use it to go sell other people at that point.
Yeah, I think another good tip there too that I've learned is when you're going to do free work, still send them an invoice for the amount that you would typically charge them, and then do it like pro bono, so you can discount it 100%. But that way, you still have that on the books, and I mean, you can even write that off on your taxes at the end of the year. So
you literally can, yeah.
Yeah, so if you guys are doing work for free to get those first initial results, make sure you guys are invoicing for it, but just discounting 100% on the invoice, and you can write that off on your taxes, so you can still get some benefits from that. But yeah, I mean, once you get those results, man, people want to work with you. And I think, without diving too much into my business, that's been a little bit of a sticking point for me, where we've been able to get results for a couple of people in a certain space, but it's been hard to duplicate that across multiple businesses. So we're still learning the ins and outs of that. But I think a big part of that is what you already touched on, and that's systems. So what would you say, if someone's like, all right, they're running all over their business, they're crazy, they got 4 or 5 clients, they think they can't handle it anymore, what would the first systems be in place that they should set up?
The biggest thing that I would probably suggest is, number one, either bring on an assistant or a virtual assistant to just take on like the mundane shit that you shouldn't be doing anyways. And it's funny because mundane for most people can mean very different things. Like for me, I absolutely am the worst at answering back to emails, like the worst. And I own it and my clients know that. So it's like, if you want to get a hold of me, you've got one of 2 options. Text me if you have my number, or hit me up on Facebook, because that's where I'm going to communicate with you. Yeah. And that means different things. Like I have a really, really good friend of mine who's a marketer, and he's opposite. He loves answering emails, but he hates his Facebook Messenger. So his VA runs his entire Facebook Messenger, because people just blow him up on Facebook Messenger all the time. So to figure out what you don't like doing that's mundane to you, and get your VA to do that, so you can focus, number one, on growth of the company, and number two, on fulfillment of the company. Because the more you fulfill and the more results you get, the more client case studies you're going to get, which turn around and you could use in your funnels and everything else to get more clients. And it's just literally getting to a point where it's like delegating. And the number one thing that most people don't do is delegate the most useless shit that's not making you the most amount of money as fast as you can.
Yeah, and we've all been in that trap, man. I'm sure I can, and still sometimes I find myself doing things that I probably shouldn't be doing for clients. And years ago when I was really focused on building websites, I can't tell you how much time I wasted just tweaking things on client websites or going back and forth, and just like shit that I just should not have been doing. But obviously that's what we're on this journey for, to learn from people like you. So I appreciate all of this solid advice, man.
Absolutely.
So let's go back to the beginning of your business. What would you have done differently, or when you started your business and you were just learning, looking back on that, what do you think you have done differently to help you kind of fast forward to where you are now?
It's funny because the question that you're just asking is exactly what we are doing right now, because we're in this heavy transition phase of going from what the one company was called to technically restarting with we come with a book of clients already, but we're going to restart the entire thing as if it's a completely new company with like new Stripe accounts, everything. And the one thing that I would probably redo if I was to do it is sell even faster at the front end, but make sure you can get as much back end support as you possibly can. A lot of people focus on selling the one, which you have to. You sell the first, let's say, this is going to get confusing here. So number one, I'll do this in like 3 or 4 steps. Number one, go get a free client, okay? Get that result, take that result, and then go and sell as many clients as you possibly can to replace your current, like if you're working in a job, go and replace your current job income. So if you're making $5K a month at a client, you're going to charge $1,500, you got to get 4 clients to replace that income. Now you're ahead of that game, right? So go and sell your 4 clients and fulfill on those 4 clients as hard and fast as you can. Do not get any more clients for the next 60 days or so. Just make sure these are your 4 best clients you're working with. Then take that 4 and aim to double it within the next 60 days. So you're at 8. And just continually compound that entire number every single time, because what that will also help you do, so that's step 2. Step 3, what that'll help you do is once you go from 1 to 4, you need to create a system to run those 4. Once you go from 4 to 8, you need to create a system to run those 8. Once you go from 8 to 16, it's a completely different ball game of how to do it. By the end of the year, you should be, obviously with churn and everything else, you should have an average of about 20 clients that are very, very solid, consistently paying you. And that in itself is a very sustainable business.
Yeah. And what have you found were the best tactics for going and getting those clients? I know we talked about what things you would do, what you did to scale up, with cold email, but what, have you done, you found most effective that people can go do? Because I feel like there's so many
The most
options, man.
effective, yeah. The most effective, I'd say, is running Facebook traffic. Like, that is the most effective way of running Facebook traffic. Specifically for people in the States, like, I have some trouble a lot of times because a lot of my business is in Australia, which is weird. I live in Canada and the majority of my business is in Australia. A lot of the targeting options that Australians get, like the US doesn't get. So it's like when we're looking at client acquisition in the US, we can target so much more than we can target in the US. Like in the US, they let you target to a point where it's like people's incomes, people's spending habits, premium credit cards, so many different things that you can target in the US that they give you the options in Australia, but they don't give you as in-depth of an option as you can in the US. So it's like, create a funnel. So number one, create a funnel that literally showcases the case study that you got for free. Do like a mini audit of what it would look like that you would do for a client or in a strategy call, and then put that case study at the bottom, and then just get them to book a call, and then get them to book a call. You can go to Calendly or Schedule Once. You can get a free account. You don't have to get the paid one initially, and then just literally jump on a call with them and do as many calls as you can.
So, you're running just a video ad. It's essentially your audit/case study, and then with a Calendly link, and just telling people to go book time right from that.
That's it. Because, and then, there's other steps that you can do eventually of, and this probably goes backwards, but this is coming from my sales perspective. And it's like, I'd rather have someone learn to sell, because if you learn to sell and you get into a perspective, if you have a client fire, your sales ability to keep that client from dealing with that fire is going to get them to get over not firing you at that point. Understanding, okay, so like the other thing that to answer that question is, a lot of people want to get them qualified prior to, but what's a qualified client if you have nothing that's paying you? Everybody's a qualified client to you at that point, right? So it's like, take that client, get on as many sales calls as you possibly can, because initially, unless you know how to close, you're probably going to close 1 in 10, 1 in 15. You just got to get on those sales calls. But the more you do those sales calls, the better you're going to get.
Yeah. And I would encourage people too, if you are at a point where you're like, okay, I want to scale, I'm going to test Facebook ads and do this, to test it and be patient. Like, it's so weird that when I tried this the first time, it didn't work at all. I tried it the second time for real estate agents, and it blew up. Like, for whatever reason, like, I just hit the right chord, and I had real estate agents blowing me up. I mean, I was so stoked. Like, look at my inbox in the morning and see meetings set up with dozens of people. So like, that was really cool. But then I did the home and garden niche, which is where I've really been focused on, and it bombed. So it's this really weird like balance of like testing it and being patient with it. So what advice do you give to someone who is wanting to build out not an automated funnel, but essentially a way to get inbound leads? What's the best advice you give?
The best advice that I would give, number one, it's funny because one thing that you said is real estate, you nailed it, but home and garden, you kind of bombed. A lot of what I see in students of mine, that when they're trying to use the funnel is, let's say they're targeting a home and garden niche, but they're targeting them during like 9 and 5. That's when they're out working in the field. You got to be targeting them when they're going to be sitting in front of this thing, or sitting in front of their computer, or like, just sitting, and majority of the time it's like after dinner, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, run that traffic to them. You're going to get 20%, 80-20 Pareto's law, always going to work. You can get the 20% during 9 to 5, but I'd be blowing majority of my money during 7 and 11 to 7 and 12 p.m. at night, because that's when you're going to get majority of them. Real estate agents, they're on their phone, they're on the internet all the time. Yeah. So you're going to get them. So it's like, get to a point where you understand the psychology of the market. Because if you also don't understand the avatar of the person that you're getting into, or you're never going to actually reach that client, or never be able to get to that point. But to answer your question of, the biggest thing that I would probably suggest when it comes to automating your process is do it yourself first. And in terms of create the funnel, run the traffic, know who exactly you're talking to. And if you don't have someone, like if you don't have multiple media buyers, like in our place, we've got 6 media buyers that work for us. So at any point, I could literally pull my current traffic if one gets too busy and just pass it to another media buyer, just say, hey, keep running this traffic. But we're looking at, even us as an agency, we're looking at outsourcing our own traffic to another company, because when you do it internally, you're too attached to the outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, very true,
right?
man. That's yeah. No, you're
So,
right. And you take it a lot more personal too when things don't work.
oh, 100%. Because then you're looking at every metric possible because it's your money. You're looking at every CPM, CPCs, cost per acquisition to the point where it just doesn't make sense because you're so attached to that outcome. But if you say, hey, here's my budget, just go and fucking blow $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 in ads for me, but make sure it generates my cost per I don't care what the lead cost is. All I need to know is my application costs are under 150 bucks. As long as they're doing that all day long, keep spending money. Like that's literally all it is. Just keep spending
That's
money.
awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's easy to get. Like I had to delete the Facebook ad app from my phone because I would just refresh it like every hour, like at OCD. So
Yeah.
I could relate to that. That's good advice, man. But yeah, I think doing yourself, yourself first, it's also cost effective, but teaches you how to actually do it. Just be a better marketer in general. So really, really
Well, at
solid.
the end of the day, yeah, and part of the reason you also want to do it, I don't mean to cut you off there, but a couple
No,
times
no,
it's
it's
just
okay.
went is at the end of the day, the biggest thing is you want to do it first is because let's say you give it to an agency to run, right? It's funny enough, because we run a lot of traffic for other agencies, and you give it to another agency to run. If they bomb it and you need to take it back, you need to know exactly what to do to get it back going immediately.
Yeah, for sure, man. Absolutely. So this has all been incredibly useful advice, man. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you sharing all this great stuff and being here on the show. Before we wrap this up, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've got, planned for 2018 and what you're working on this year?
What we've got planned for 2018. So the biggest thing that we've been working on since January till now is, what are we, like February 12th or 13th or
Like
something
halfway.
today?
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. We're about to be a quarter of the way through the year here.
It's crazy. So our goal is, so this week, we just finished up a long weekend here in Canada yesterday. So this week we're going to launch the entire new brand of the company, which you're one of the very first few people to know about it, which is the Grow Rev Digital.
Yeah.
And we're going to put that and scale the crap out of that in the next, probably by the middle of April. That's goal one, to a point where it's like using all of our case studies and using everything else to like literally go to a point where we've got full teams already set up in Australia for scale, and we've got full teams in North America already set up for scale, because we're going to go extremely hard. And going back to our systems, we've literally hired a systems person to run our front end and back end of our company, because I run the entire front end and our back end is run by my business partner. That's part one. Part two is going to be scaling into doing a lot more events. I love speaking at events. It's just something that I've done a lot more, and we do a lot of traffic for events. So we're going to be running a lot of masterminds in the agency space. So teaching people how to just build agencies and do them properly, which most people don't know. They buy courses and they just don't do anything with it. And one thing I realized, coming from my background of like, why did I actually have the biggest success, was because I just went and did masterminds. I do masterminds all the time. I'm going to one next week in New York. And being around that environment and getting people in that space is part two of the year. And then part three of the year is going as international as we possibly can, and possibly even looking at opening up Dubai as our third big location that we want to go after.
Hell yeah, man. Taking over the world. I love it. Again, I'm so grateful to, just share some time with you and learn from you, because you were obviously doing a crazy good job over there. So why don't you, last thing here, tell my audience if they want to go learn more about you, or maybe you've got, free lead magnet, something, whatever you want, just go ahead and tell them where they should go check you out, and I'll drop that link below the video.
The easiest place to find me is going to be Instagram or YouTube, actually. Instagram is probably not going to be quicker because I've just built a solid following on Instagram for some weird reason. And then just taking YouTube on this year, but it's just a different ballgame, YouTube versus Instagram, because the content is completely different.
Oh, yeah.
But the quickest way to find me is Instagram. DM me on there. Facebook. You can follow me on Facebook. Just follow me on my personal page, because I don't really do much on my business page, which is probably a bad thing. But I think I've just built a solid following on my Facebook page. If I have room for friends, add me as a friend. I'll go through binges of cleaning out people on there sometimes. And other than that, the only other one would be just my agency course, which I don't really want to plug. But if you're cool with it, there's a lead magnet in there. You could, I'll give you the links for it all, so you can plug it into the bottom of the YouTube video, and we can kind of share that knowledge with people on how to just scale agency. Like we're going to do, literally doing a lot of these interviews. I've realized it's a common denominator. Even being able to be on Ty Lopez's program last year and teaching in his program, is like the questions that I get from those people. I'm like, I'm just going to create a free series for people that I'm going to give on how to literally just scale in 4 parts, how to scale your agency. So we'll do that. We'll give your audience a first look at that.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, everyone for tuning in and watching this, this has been episode number 40 of Laptop Empires. Again, we had Rohan Sheth here on the show. Incredible interview with a lot of great advice. So make sure you go through this a few times, get out all the golden nuggets, and then we will catch you in the next one. See you guys.
Thanks for having me.
Good time, man. Right on.